All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the FloGrappling Show, a.k.a. the worst show on the internet. As always, I'm Trey Robinson. Joey Gilps is freaking out of here, dude. We kicked him off the show, at least for one episode. So we got Big Slack Barrett over here on the side. Everybody leave a comment and review Slack's performance down here in the main chairs afterwards. And then we got Uncle Reed over here. And then calling in all the way from London, we got Owen Jones. Everybody give it up for Owen.
What up, Owen?
What's up, big dog?
What's going on, Owen? What have you been up to?
Chilling, just enjoying life, you know. London's nice and hot at the minute, so just going out to the bar, have a couple beers, chilling, a little bit of training, not too much, you know. Don't want to overtrade, you know.
Yeah.
But a little bit of trading, some drinks, vibes.
That's been the word on the street, right? That Owen Jones doesn't actually train. So, you know, what you just mainly party now and train every now and then, or?
Yeah, apparently I don't need to train, bro. I just rock up, smoke the guy, and go home. That's it. That's the
Like
blueprint.
the John
That's
Jones
the
effect.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
John
yeah,
Jones
yeah.
of grappling. How long have you been
No.
back in London, right? Because you went back over for like some visa stuff or something, but your plan is to come back to America, right?
Yes. I've been here for 2 months. 2 months too long, to be honest. But yeah, I was just basically sorting out the athlete visa, and then I'm coming back. Obviously, I have the gym, Apex Atlanta, which is open now. I have a few people out there helping me with that, and then obviously we have now the match with Gianni, and then I'll go straight from there to Atlanta to run the gym.
Nice. Yeah, I've seen a lot of the videos and stuff coming out of Los Banditos. You guys kind of got like a little rowdy thing going on over there. I feel like Los Banditos is kind of like the B team of the London scene right now or something, you know?
Yeah. They've definitely done a sick job there. Obviously, I'm friends with the guy Joe, who's the owner of there, and then now they have owner Flanagan in there. They have obviously Faris Faradinho, you know, big coach. They got Charles Negromonte, and then they have Taylor Pearman who comes down to train. And there's a bunch of obviously up and coming guys. A guy called Nico is very good. Tommy Relish. So it's like sick room to train in there. And then we have obviously good vibes. I feel like people kind of friends know each other. We're a little bit boyish on the cameras and stuff. So I think it's pretty sick. I enjoy having it, especially because obviously I'm from here, so when I come back, having a place to train and high level training partners is ideal for me.
Yeah, whenever we went to London, like a year or so ago, maybe it was 2 years, the first time we went, and we stopped by WNO Flanagan. Like he was doing classes out of like a judo club in like a high school or something. Is that where Los Banditos is, or is this a different spot?
Nah, so this is a different spot. Los Banditos, I believe, has been open for a year. So Joe used to train at Roger Gracie's, and then Owen had his own thing, the Submission Grappling Club, but now they've merged and they have a new gym in Ladbroke Grove, which is where Los Banditos is.
Nice. And is Christian Ozbek there too?
How could I forget the GOAT? Yeah, the GOAT there, man. He's foot sweeping people, putting on my highlight reels on a daily basis. He's there doing his thing.
Yeah.
What's Ono Flanagan up to?
Yeah, what is he up to?
I mean, he just fought Mo on Polaris. I know he's just traveling, doing seminars, teaching. I don't know what matches he has prepped for next time, or I don't know. He doesn't like competing too much, so who knows?
Gotcha.
Gotcha. I noticed, because we asked one of your boys to stop in and film a little bit with you at Los Banditos, but I noticed like no rounds with you and Christian Ozbek or anything, you know? You didn't want to get it tossed around, or what's going on?
Nah, I don't want to be on the wrong side of the highlight reel, you know. I meant to inflict the damage. I'm not meant to receive the damage. He's just gonna foot sweep me.
Yeah.
And then let me stand back up. You know, he can't score points. He can't secure anyone on the floor, but he'll just try and put me down.
Listen, everyone knows I'm a huge supporter of the European grappling scene, you know, Euro Trey over here. I will say, this seems to be a common thing with Euro dudes who are really good at takedowns. They love admiring the work. I see a lot of foot sweeps, a lot of big throws, but then dudes just look at it and they're like, man, that was sick. I knocked him down. And then they don't secure points. What's up with that, bro? You guys got to follow up.
This is Christian, bro. He's leading the front of no scoring.
Yeah.
Just foot sweep and just watch the guy fall and let him stand back up.
Yeah.
Owen Livesey likes to foot sweep people.
He
left
does,
and right,
yeah.
too.
Yeah, I don't know. I like to score points, bro. I want the back.
Fair enough, bro. So you kind of mentioned already, obviously we announced you're going to be fighting Gianni on Who's Number One 29. So I thought this was a pretty hype little build up to this. Obviously we put it out there that Owen Jones was looking for a match on Who's Number One. I feel like Gianni was someone who's always kind of already been in the mix for a potential match with you, kind of originally since you called him out after your Who's Number One debut, but then definitely a lot of the fans were calling for Gianni. I know Gianni put some stuff out there, wanted it, but I kind of want to take it back and I want to just ask you about like your history with Gianni. Like where did kind of I guess how did this match come to be? Why did you originally call out Gianni? How much did you know about him like way back in the day and everything?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously he used to be relevant, right? Back then when I initially called him out, but now obviously I feel like he's obviously fallen off, right? But then initially when I beat Dominic Mejia, I feel like it was him who was quite relevant in terms of American and Keith. So I think those two were kind of some of the matches I was looking for. And obviously that was one of the guys I called out after winning. And then I kind of went upwards and he kind of went down. So then it didn't come to fruition. But now obviously he's calling for the match. So we have to, silence him once and for all, keep him quiet, send him to the sidelines.
Yeah, so you fought Dom Mejia. This was after you won trials, but before actual ADCC 2024, right? And I feel like, obviously, you were already like on a big trajectory after that trials win. Obviously, that's when we kind of started knowing you better and everything. We literally started the ADCC update show so we could talk about it and stuff. But then your win at ADCC against Gabriel Souza, that armbar, I feel like that was really like the big like Owen Jones like arrival kind of moment. Do you feel like that similar type of thing for your own career and everything?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely feel like basically in my eyes, it was like you winning European trials kind of put me on the map and was like made me relevant in the European scene. And then obviously having a good performance, the two submissions, one over Gabriel Souza, one over Gerberg at ADCC was kind of what put me on level with like one of the best guys in the division, right? I feel like if you just win the trials, you're kind of a name in the bracket. But once you start performing well at ADCC, this is when people have to obviously look at you and respect you, right? They can't just dismiss you saying that you're nobody or anything. So I think that was a big thing for me.
Yeah, and so another thing I want to talk to you about is, I guess, like, not just engaging in the trash talk, but you seem to do best whenever a guy does engage with you, like on trash, like the online with the trash talk and all that. You really get to show off your ability to make funny videos, to make good jokes and all that. But also, it's like you need guys to engage in the match as well for it to be kind of extra exciting, so you can really showcase your jiu-jitsu. So once Gianni started kind of like, once he put that video out there and he was like, bro, this match was already supposed to happen, let's just run it already, let's sign it. But then I guess knowing the type of grappler Gianni is, did that kind of excite you? Did it make it where you were like, all right, I'm gonna let loose now, and let things start ripping?
Yeah. He definitely opened up the floodgates for sure. I mean, I don't think he knows what he's gotten into, to be honest. I think he's definitely started something he can't finish. But I think it's just good for me, him being there just to take out, right? And obviously as you're saying, if someone's not giving any back and forth, it kind of becomes a little bit dead. So initially it's like just trying to find people that are going to build hype for a match and that are going to interact with me online and like actually talk some trash rather than just same like script that everyone reads, just like, oh yeah, we'll see, this guy's very good, can't wait for the match. These are the super boring answers that everyone used to run again and again and again. So a little bit of spice is good.
Johnny's been obviously in the game for a long time. Is he somebody who you were kind of watching as like a blue and purple belt? And then I'm just curious, what do you think about the style matchup there as well?
Honestly, I wouldn't say I watched Gianni much. I know he's definitely been relevant, right? He's been training longer than I've been alive. The guy's been training for like 23 years and I'm only 20. I turn 21 next week. So I think he's obviously has a lot of experience, but then it's like he's been doing that for so long and still hasn't won trials or hasn't had any major breakouts at ADCC. So that is also saying something about his level in comparison, I feel like, to mine, where I don't feel it matters how much experience. It's just I'm a level above him and I'm just looking to prove that. But I wouldn't say I watched him or studied him too much. Stylistically, I just think it's a good match. I feel like I'm better than him all around. He has one move, an arm triangle from an outside Ashi, and that's about it. So it's just a matter of avoiding that.
When you first called out Gianni, beyond just like kind of relevancy and his name and everything, was there anything particular about like him that you were like, that's the reason I want to fight Gianni?
Easy money, man. That's all it is, bro. Easy pickings. He's just another one. He's just obviously, I think he's good social media, he has a lot of presence on that aspect. I wouldn't say there was anything too personal or anything. I have nothing against him. I don't know him that much, but he's a little bit weird, but that's it. That's all I know. Not too much.
I mean, a little weird on like the jujitsu scale or just like the normal person scale. Cause I don't know. I think all jujitsu guys kind of lean pretty hard on the weird side, you know?
I don't know. I've heard a few stories. I heard something like apparently like or he used to train at Henzo's back in the day, and like he announced that he was leaving Henzo's on Henzo's birthday, and just I've heard a few weird stories that things that he's done that I think is a bit odd. He's obviously bounced around a lot of gyms and stuff. I know from a couple of my friends in New York saying that he's just moved and like doesn't really stay in one place. I feel like this also says something when someone's consistently jumping teams that there's a little bit something's wrong there, you know?
Gotcha. I think, obviously, yeah, Gianni has been in the game for a really long time. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
been training almost as long as I've been alive too. A little less, I guess. But just which like is a pretty incredible thing, honestly. But I do think both of you have kind of like in recent years changed a lot about like your evolutions. Even like Gianni with his approach to jiu-jitsu. Like Gianni was originally one of the big drilling guys, right? And now he's more of an eco guy and all that. But even you as well, I feel like when we first saw you, like you did trials, then you had a match. Was this before trials or right after trials on Honor against Fabricio? You
This
remember
was
that?
a bit before, yes. This was the my this I would say was probably my major like eye opener match. This was about I want to say a month before trials. I think it was like June or July maybe, and then trials was September. So this was obviously like for me it was an eye opener of the fact that I can compete with the best guys because I wasn't fully no-gi at that point. Before trials, I was still doing the gi, I was still doing the IBJJF circuit, and after that match, it kind of was like, oh, this is kind of easy.
Do you think so? This is a debate we've had with Slack before, actually. Do you think no gi is easier than gi jujitsu?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, for sure.
How
For
come?
sure. It's not, it's, I think it's just obviously, I think the gi has been around for longer. So there's also more of like a talent pool. The deepness of the divisions is definitely bigger. Like when I look at trying to win ADCC and like when I look at trying to win like black belt featherweight worlds, I definitely think worlds is harder for sure. But I also think it's just strength plays a bit more into factor, grip strengths and then I don't know. Yeah, for me personally, it's definitely harder, right? And it's also you win matches by margins. If someone gets your back in the gi or if someone scores an advantage, that's the match done. They just lock it off. They hold you 50-50 or they hold you down. They just hold the grips and it's hard to win. Whereas no-gi, there's like so many crazy scrambles that can happen in matches. There's way less of these like stall fests, right? Like even you look at matches at trials with like Joseph Tars is a perfect example of someone where it's like one guy's on the other guy's back, then he reverses, gets on the other guy's back, and it's going back and forth. These scrambles and like exchanges happen a lot more in Nogi in comparison to the gi. If someone gets the back in the gi, it's usually dead to rights. It's usually over from there. Whereas Nogi, people escape more often and there's more room for scrambles and stuff like that.
Yeah, like I think I heard you talk about before on a different podcast or something you're on, right? Where it's like in the gi, it is a little more like I don't want to say set in stone, but it's kind of just like you kind of know how things are going to play out more in like high level gi matches. Like you're not very often going to see a purple belt come in and like submit a black belt, like especially a world class dude, because it's like as soon as you get the right grips, like you get the right position, it's like you can kind of slow it all down. You can like a high level black belt dude can make sure it's like, no, this does not leave my game now that I have all my grips, everything that I want. But in no-gi, there is just that slight more room to create scrambles, to create space and like kind of make things happen where you can like jump on an armbar out of nowhere kind of, more so than in the gi, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this was my main thought process when I was transitioning. It was like when I first in the gi, there are certain guys that I would train with and they would just smoke me and I couldn't do anything. The second I went to no-gi, it became like retaining guard became way easier. Sweeping people became harder, I would say, just because I think it's harder to hold someone down when it's like sweaty, but passing the guard became easier and harder at the same time, right? This is a little bit difficult because it's hard to hold them, but then it's way harder for them to hold you as well. So, but I definitely feel like, for example, when I was rolling with Faris a lot in the gi, he was just shutting me down because he was way bigger. He could just hold the grips and I couldn't do anything. Whereas Nogi now, I can use a little bit of my flexibility, a little bit of my speed to actually get things going against him. Whereas I didn't feel like in the gi it had that much like room, wiggle room and stuff to move. I don't think the gi is very unforgiving. If you make a mistake and someone gets like an inch closer to passing or like a crossface or like an underhook, it's kind of almost dead to rights. Whereas the no gi is way more just open flowing through scrambles.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. That the gi is like much more unforgiving for sure.
I also think it makes sense too that like the no gi is a situation where defense is easier and offense is harder. And when you put the gi on, it switches. So like it's easier to rip an armbar from guard with the gi because you have a sleeve,
have the handles,
and like all these things to grip. It's harder to play defense because if someone gets on top of you, they have all this material to hold on to. So.
Mm-hmm. And I
Yeah,
guess
that's a very good point. I would agree with that. Yeah, it's definitely harder, right? Like there's so many more options for and ways to stay sticky in the gi, whereas no gi it didn't feel like that way. And
yeah.
the lapel was cursed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agree.
We're still trying to figure out how to implement a lapel-based game into no-gi. Once I figure that out, dude, I plan on taking over, just winning by advantages and referees' decisions every no-gi major event. But I haven't quite pieced it together yet, though. But
Trey mentioned, the ecological approach. Obviously, that's a big topic in jiu-jitsu these days. Where do you fall on this ecological debate that's kind of going on in the jiu-jitsu community here?
So, I mean, I would definitely say it's very valid, right? I think it's a very good way to train, but I do think it's the same as anything. It takes like a good coach to perfect it, right? Like Greg has obviously had a lot of experience doing it and has well researched, like a lot of research put into it, so he kind of knows how to formulate the games to get results out of his athletes. Whereas I feel like there are other people that maybe they try and do the games and maybe they misrepresent what it stands for and how it should be like represented almost, right? And they don't get the same results. But I don't know. Yeah, I think it definitely works. I mean, for me now, I'm at a point where I could definitely just do the game-based approach because I don't really need to learn technique anymore. But I do think there is an element of like instruction that is needed when somebody is coming up through the ranks or when somebody is a white belt going towards like blue belt level where they need direct instructions on like there is a better way for you to finish XYZ, right?
yeah, so I do like the hybrid approach to the ecological thing. Like I think a lot more gyms now, even just like hobbyist gyms and stuff, are implementing it in small ways where like maybe the class starts and you do some sort of like constraint based warm up, where it's like, all right, this guy on top for 3 minutes is just trying to do A, and then guy on bottom, you're trying to do B or whatever. Then you show a technique, kind of drill it a few times, then go back to like positional rounds and everything, and then open sparring. So that's kind of, I don't know. I'm still not an eco expert by any means, to be honest. I keep trying to read these books about eco, like kind of where Greg got a lot of stuff from. But man, dude, there are not enough pictures in these books, bro.
They're dense. They're dense.
Yeah, a lot of big words, dude. I need more pictures. If it was like a pop up and it just like would pop up and be like, "Here's an eco game," and then maybe it would make more sense to me. But but I like the hybrid approach of the ecological stuff.
Yeah, I definitely think some people are too, dogmatic with the approach where it's just like it has to be absolutely one or the other, right? There can definitely be a middle ground where you can kind of look at playing around with the games and then teaching technique. I would say I understand also the point of like if you do games-based approach the same day you do technique, sometimes it like narrows their focus down to just what you've taught them and what they should do rather than it kind of kills their creativity, right? But I feel like if you structure it well where it's like okay maybe today we're going to learn technique and then we'll do the eco games and another day and like kind of structure your training, but it also depends on the person and on the individual, right? Because some people just can't figure it out, right? Like if you get Joseph Chen to do an eco game and you just get a random hobbyist to do an eco game, right? Let's say they both didn't know jiu-jitsu but just their ability to problem solve. Joseph's obviously going to learn quicker and more than the random, right? Because he's very good at doing them, like problem solving and creating up new scenarios. Whereas it kind of doesn't favor the person who isn't as good at problem solving and needs more direct direction. Like, okay, this is how you finish a triangle rather than start in a triangle, try and get an angle and try and squeeze to get the finish, right? More direct instructions like, okay, try and get your knees in the same direction, hamstring curl, leg scissor, etc., right?
Yeah, that's a good point for sure. Like a person who's more naturally like creative or like you said, like a problem solver, they are going to probably flourish more in an eco kind of environment. But then, yeah, there are dudes who are very analytical too. They want to know like exactly like grab this exact grip, like, oh no, 1 inch higher, turn your hips this way, you know? So that does make sense.
Because I eventually feel like you get to a point where it's just like, dude, I roll with you every single time and you pass my guard in this game.
Exactly.
The exact same way.
Exactly. That's pretty much all Reed had to say is that I roll with him every time and I pass his guard.
Not Trey. I'm not talking about Trey. and like you pass my guard every single time there's some way. You, like teach me what you're doing and how to defend it. Because I'm not learning. I'm not figuring it out.
The one thing I will say, I think maybe it also is, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's anyone's fault, but I feel like they don't completely also explain how they train because they do also tell people, they also talk, there is dialogue, you know. I think this is from my experience and what I think changed most of my training was being able to like troubleshoot with somebody who's also high level, with someone like PJ or Joseph or people at B Team, Owen or Flanagan, Taylor, right? Where it's like, okay, I'm running into this issue. What do you do? They will have those conversations. Whereas I feel like when people think about eco, they just completely throw the fact that they have those conversations out the window. So this is me just playing a little bit of devil's advocate. I do feel like they do also say, okay, I've caught you with this pass 4 times. Maybe you should try and do this, this, and this to avoid it, or this is how I'm doing it.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Kind of like sneaking in technique that way. That's a good point. Obviously, B Team does that very well now. They always do those Q&A sessions. I know when we were there with you guys last time when Nicky Rod was fighting Kynan, you were fighting Julian Espinoza. There was like that seemed like most of the drilling was actually like kind of like Q&A, like problem solving. Like you guys were going over kind of the PED leg lock system, the trend lock and whatnot, and like it was a lot of like kind of Dima would show the move and then it would end up like people would start drilling, but then you'd be over with Chris Wojcik and you would both be like, I don't know, dude, what if I do this, and kind of shoot like problem solving that way. I know New Wave does a lot of that.
I believe Joseph calls it tinkering, where you talk, tinkering. I think that's what he called it, when you basically you discuss where you think what you think you would do, what you think they should do, what's like worse, what's better, right? Like, because you kind of, if you have someone who's also, for example, Chris is very good at obviously leg locks, right? So it's like if me and him are there, I can kind of get his opinion and then I can get Taylor Pearman's opinion and then create my own version of the move, right? Because obviously everyone does everything slightly differently. Even if everyone's doing the trend lock, the fact that somebody is 6'2" or they're 5'4", you know, it's going to be completely different on how they're finishing it. So I think trying to pick people's brains and then kind of go your own route with the technique.
Nice, yeah.
Makes sense.
Borrowing everyone else's knowledge to kind of inform your own style and ways of doing it and stuff.
And obviously, you know, right? I'm sure you're familiar with it. Like Johnny was really known as like the driller for a long time. Like I would go to Marcelo Garcia and just watch him drill for like watch him drill leg drag patches for literally 2 hours straight. And now he's kind of switched things and he's really big on the eco. And so he's kind of switching up his training a lot from what he used to do for 20 years. Now he's switching things up. Do you think that will have an effect? Do you think that's a good thing? I'm just wondering what you think of his approach now that he's kind of changing the way he's thinking about things.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely good to have just more active training, right? That if you're just doing more jiu-jitsu, you're going to get better jiu-jitsu, right? The drilling thing, static drilling, I've never even done that. Like even when I did gi, it was never like, okay, do 100 leg drags, then do 100 like stack passes, then do 100 toreandos, you know? This is not, it's literally not, it doesn't make sense. I don't get why you would do that. It's more like positional rounds and just trying to get more active rounds in. So I definitely think it will obviously be beneficial for him, but it won't be enough. That's all I'll say. It won't be enough.
What's the current A game for Owen Jones? I feel like originally I kind of thought of you as like a leg locker, but now it seems like you're always hunting the back and stuff. You know, what's the current A game of Owen Jones?
I can do whatever you want, Trey. I'm all well-rounded, but I can wrestle now. I can play guard. I can pass guard. I can take the back. I can finish. I can armbar. You know what I'm saying? I've got tools in the shed, bro. They don't know what game plan I'm gonna throw at them. Maybe I'm gonna leg lock Gianni. Maybe I'm gonna pass him. Who knows? Nah, but with Gianni, the A game I think is definitely passing. I think this is taken over with a lot of, you see a lot of the high level guys is just taking down the person and passing. You know, you can control the pace much more when you're on top. You can fatigue your partner, eventually break them over time, and then you can either pass to get the back or sit back onto legs. I think this is probably the meta, I would say.
What's been the major catalyst for Owen Jones to, you know, have all these tools in the shed to throw at people?
I've always wanted to be well-rounded, you know. I don't want to be one-dimensional where it's like if somebody figures out that they can stop your game with like X, Y, Z, then you can just like you can lose to guys who you shouldn't lose to, right? Like Mateusz Rosiński is a perfect example of there are guys that he's definitely better than, but because his game is quite limited to the fact that he has certain entries that he gets to his outside ashi and finishes his footlock this way, and you can stop them by controlling his inside hand, right? And then he's having super competitive matches with people who he's definitely way better than because I've watched him in training and I've trained with him before. But because these guys can shut him down in comp and he doesn't have the ability to either wrestle up or stand and take the guy down and come up and pass, then this is kind of like stagnating his growth as a competitor. Whereas if he was able to perform those, because he can pass, right, and he can wrestle, just not doing that in comp is different. So trying to basically put everything into fruition in competition, passing, wrestling, and just being a well-rounded jiu-jitsu competitor, you know, this is the end goal, just to be able to do everything, right? You don't want to just, okay, I have a 6 straight ankle, that's it.
Yeah.
You want to be like, oh, I don't want the guy to go, if I can just play guard against Owen, it's going to be an easier match. You know, they're going to be like, well, I can't play guard, I can't play top, I just have to pick one, maybe playing guard's a little bit better, you know? I don't want them to be able to go, oh, if I can just get on bottom, he can't do anything, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like being in different environments often while you're preparing helps you be more well-rounded? Because I was going to ask you, like, we've seen you at B Team a lot. Right now you're at Los Benditos. You're also building your own gym in Atlanta. So you seem to kind of have a very like open spread of training partners, coaches. Like, how do you balance all that out?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely feel like this was the main thing is just, yeah, different bodies, right? You have so many people, everyone trains like so different and people have unique things that they're very good at. So definitely being exposed to, for example, Taylor's guard retention, Owen O'Flanagan's leg locks, Joseph's passing, Faris's wrestling, Charles Negromonte just being indestructible. You know, there's like so many things that you can kind of take from different people. You know, Ethan Crelinsten's back attacks, there's like, and then obviously I think Dima playing a factor in kind of structuring where I should be trying to implement new techniques into the game, right? Like he'll tell me, okay, maybe you haven't been doing too much of chest to chest passing. Why is that? Okay, maybe try and do that in the next couple of weeks and try and get better at that, etc. Right? Like kind of using these to basically branch out my skills so I'm not one dimensional. Yeah.
Is it ever challenging to have to sort of program your own training though? Like, because if you move around that much, you must kind of have just like an intuitive sense also of like what you need to be working on.
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely say, yeah, the traveling is it's annoying when I'm not somewhere for a long time. But usually when I go to B team, it's like 6 weeks camps, and then when I'm in London, it's like 4 weeks, you know. So I have time to like kind of climatize and I know who I'm gonna be able to train with, you know. Whereas like when I go to random places, like I'm doing seminars and I'm traveling around to different like places in Europe or Asia or whatever, this is when it becomes a little bit more challenging because then you don't really know who you're going to be training with, right? And you kind of have to then try and force yourself into bad spots in rounds if you're training with people who aren't that good, and then trying to find somebody who is good in that area and kind of like structure your training like that is a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm gonna ask you a couple hard hitting questions now because we're almost
Let's
up
go.
on time, but a couple hard hitting ones first. Can you put us on game with some cool like UK slang or something? What's some cool slang we should start using over here on this side of the pond?
Big man, you're gonna do me like that? You're gonna throw me under? Cool slang. Meaty. Do you know meaty? Would you say meaty?
Meaty,
Yeah,
like
someone's
meat.
meaty. Like a meaty. So like they're mid. Like if you
Oh,
say someone's mid, it's like they're mid. They're meaty. They're not that good. You know, they're below average.
all right,
You
cool.
say someone's mid, someone's meaty. Um,
Trey's
what's
meaty.
another good one?
How do you spell meaty?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, Trey's guard retention is meaty.
Meedy. You would
Whoa,
M-E-Y.
well, let's not use
out
it
of
like that,
context as
boys.
well. Yeah. Another was another one. I'm trying to think. What context? Give me some more context. Where would you want to use the
Uh,
slang word?
Like maybe I'm like super handsome and I just like I'm out around town, you know, and everyone's like stopping and looking at me like, whoa, who's this guy, you know, and I want to give them a quick line to let them know that I'm just like, oh, I'm not just like another average like, you know, white dude in Austin, you know, I got to give them a little something to add some flavor.
That's so specific.
Nothing to help you.
Yeah. Maybe I'm on like Fifth and Brazos, and I'm walking around.
I'm on 6th Street. I'm just looking at Key Bar, trying to see what I should say to get in.
Oh, you've been to Key Bar?
But I've been about.
Yeah, Owen Jones snuck into Key Bar on West 6th with his fake ID. He used Joseph Chen's ID.
Oh, Joseph Chen's younger than me, bro.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't know whose ID you used. Craig's.
Nicky Ryan.
Yeah, you used Nicky Ryan's ID?
No.
He's barely 21 also.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I use Init a lot. Init's the only one that I think is very applicable. Init, isn't it? Right? Init. I would say Init.
Yeah.
That's the best one. This is my favorite one because it's the one that I can say in America and they're not completely lost. They just think it's cool.
Yeah.
The other ones, I'm saying trousers or I'm saying these things, people get lost,
Trousers like pants?
Yeah, pants. Yes, those are the ones. Trey.
All right. Well, Gianni versus Owen. This is gonna be a good match, isn't it?
There you go. Nailed it.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
It's not meaty. That's for sure.
You could say Gianni Grippo's meaty at G. He's dead.
I'm not gonna say that. But
yeah. I'll say it.
All right,
he's dead, bro. He's mid. He's gonna get smoked.
I got one more hard hitting question. Do you have a favorite grappler all time? Someone that you love to watch? Someone that you were kind of always a fan of?
Someone I was a fan of. I was a fan of Fabricio Andre, but now he is a rival. So I can't say he's my lifetime fan because now obviously I view him as a competitor and as like someone who I want to beat. But I can say Mayram in Nagi is also someone who I very much enjoy watching. I feel like he does bring a little bit of life back into the sport of the gi. But if he comes over to Nogi, he can get whooped if he wants. But in the gi, I think he's very, very high level for sure.
He's been making some more waves in no-gi. I don't know. I could see a Mayram versus Owen Jones, BJJ Stars, super fight or something,
He don't want that. He knows he don't want that.
Nice, bro.
He ain't ready for that. He ain't ready for that.
Yeah. So you got a couple, former heroes turned rivals type of situation on your hands though, But I guess I just want to ask you one more thing about your match with Gianni, Overall, I guess two-part question. When a person does engage and kind of the trash talk starts going, does that make you feel any more pressure? Does it make you more excited for a match? And then how do you think this match is ultimately going to play out with Gianni?
Yeah, it definitely makes me more excited. I love it. I love a little bit of obviously the online little back and forth, a little bit of trash talk, a little bit of like build up. And I definitely think it brings more attention to the match, which then makes me more excited for the match. I don't like it when people are just being boring. But ultimately, I think he'll sit down like a good boy. I will pass his guard. I will take his back and I will choke him. That is how the match will go.
All right.
We're about to talk to Gianni Grippo here in just a minute after you. Do you have any message?
Actually, here's a good one. You could tell him Wagwan, you dead guy. You're getting smoked.
Was that Jamaican slang?
Wagwan. I mean, yeah, a lot of the UK slang is from a lot of like Jamaican words and stuff like that. So Wagwan's a very common knowledge here. People say it quite a lot.
All right.
Do you have a message for Gianni as we're about to talk to him? Anything you want us to ask him or anything you want to ask him?
Do I have a message for him? I don't know. Bring a box of tissues, my boy. It's going to be peak.
All right. There we go.
And there. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Wagwan, Owen.
I'm going now. You can't say hello.
Oh, okay.
You say in a bit.
All right.
Say in a bit.
Yeah, in a bit.
In a bit. So until next time. In a bit.
All right, Owen. Well, thanks for calling in, bro. We'll let you get out of here. It's good talking to you. We're excited to see you on Who's Number 129. Now we're gonna talk to Gianni. We'll see what he has to say.
Yes, sir. Cheers, boys.
All right, see you, bro.
See you, brother.
All right, so we're back now with Gianni Grippo. Gianni's obviously going to be taking on Owen Jones, so we asked him to call in as well. But I'll just start off. Gianni, how's everything been going, bro? How are you?
Man, been good. Been keeping. Thank you guys for having me, first of all.
Of course.
But just been keeping busy, and that's how I like to be. I never like. I'm not a big fan of off seasons, so this year so far has pretty much been no off season. I thought after a few events I was going to have a little time off, and then Ricardo hit me up about getting on a match, and I was like, all right, fuck the off season, we're back. Let's get back to work.
Yes, you were obviously just in Kazakhstan, and I thought a funny thing about one of the first videos you made about kind of being like, bro, let's do this match. Like, it was supposed to happen a long time ago, but you were like, well, I was gonna take a 24 to 48 hour vacation, but I decided not to. You're really gonna let yourself have that long of a vacation, dude? 48 hours?
Yeah. You know what? We were out there in Kazakhstan, and it was a great trip. I gotta say, Kazakhstan like was way better than I expected it to be. But the whole experience and like the travel and the weight cut and the training out there and the altitude, it was a little draining. I'm not gonna lie. You know, I remember me and DeAndre and Chris Wojcik and some of these guys, we were all saying, "Oh yeah, let's just go home. I just want to decompress for a few days." But I actually got a message while I was in Kazakhstan, and I was already in my mind. I'm like, "All right, there goes that break." And that was totally fine with me. I have no problems with that. I love staying busy. So it was funny. As soon as I came back, I was gonna, even with the Owen match kind of set, I was gonna give myself like a week of just maybe chiller training, you know, kind of just like training just for fun, and then this week get back into it. And that lasted for maybe like one session. You know, I started really getting amped up, and I'm like, all right, let's put all the focus into this match as soon as I got home.
The Kazakhstan event, Aiga looked crazy watching on the stream. Was it as crazy being there in person?
Yeah, I love that event. I have honestly like never been in a real team format before, and that was the most exhilarating experience. You know, competing for yourself, of course, but also competing for the guys around you. And we also had a really cool group. You know, of course, Australians make it fun. You know, we had a lot of Australians on the team, good European crew, good guys from Japan, Americans. I think we had a really good mix of personalities on the team, and we all clicked really well. There was no cliques. There was no one was kind of like stuck on their own. Everyone was all really together the whole time. So it made the experience so much better. So yeah, I know we ended up taking third, but like I left with like, it was an amazing experience. I really enjoyed it.
That's awesome. It's a gnarly flight to Kazakhstan though, right? Isn't it something like a 24-hour or something crazy type of flight?
Yeah. I never looked forward to like long travel like that. I've actually had longer travel this year. I went to Thailand earlier this year, and that was way longer. I think it was a 16-hour flight and then another like 4 or 5 hour flight to get there. So when I found out that this was like 9 hours and then another 4 hours, I'm like, that's easy.
Not too bad.
Easy.
No, it's not too bad. I will say like the time difference was rough. There was a couple of nights where I was just like wide awake, and that wasn't too much fun. But overall, I mean, thank goodness we were there for like a week. So by the time the event rolled around, I was pretty well adjusted and feeling fine by then.
Yeah, I consider any flight that's not double digits, is a pretty easy flight. So
yeah, honestly, for whatever reason, I assumed that it was longer. So when I actually found out the night before my flight that it was only 9 hours, I was actually excited. I was like doing laps around the apartment, like, yeah, it's not double digit flight time. Yeah, I was pretty amped up. Honestly.
Dude, while we're talking flights, I will say I think one of my least favorite like flights is like a very long domestic flight. Like if you're going like coast to coast or something, it's like a 5 or close to 6 hour, but you're only staying in America. That just doesn't feel right. It's like, man,
satisfying.
Yeah, it's like this is so long. I should be going somewhere way sicker than Atlantic City, or something. But, but
I wrote shade at Jersey.
Well, I don't mind Jersey, but I don't like Atlantic City. I'll say that. I'll say it straight up.
I'll be honest, and I'm sure my Jersey friends, actually, what? No, I bet my Jersey friends would even agree with me here. I know East Coast Trials has always been in Atlantic City for however long now, and I think it's being moved to Orlando this year. And to be honest, like even though I lose the ability to just drive, I'm totally cool with that. I've never had good experiences in Atlantic City. The hotels are shady, just everything about it. So I'm fine with going to Orlando. It's a nice little getaway then, instead of a 3 hour drive. And it's a 3 hour drive too, even for me to Atlantic City. So a 3 hour flight, fine. It's fine.
Everything in Atlantic City feels to me like it's like half abandoned, half like on its last leg, like kind of like times are hard. I don't know, but we don't gotta hate on Atlantic City too much. That's my bad for bringing it up, but I do want to ask you obviously about Owen and this match. So I know this match has kind of been maybe like has been on the horizon for longer than a lot of people might even realize, starting back from when Owen originally called you out after his Who's Number One debut. But then we kind of put out this thing that it's like we couldn't quite solidify an opponent for Owen yet, so it's like we're looking for a match for Owen Jones, and you were one of the first people to comment, and then we had tons of fans and everything also calling for you to take on Owen Jones. And so I just want to, I guess, talk a little bit about your history with Owen Jones and were you super aware of Owen before he called you out on his original Who's Number One debut, or did you know much about him? What's kind of your history with him look like?
Yeah, so I definitely pay attention to all the competitors coming up out there. I remember seeing him win European trials, and it definitely impressed me. I thought his performance was really strong. I think he beat Ashley Williams and he beat a couple other really tough guys. So he definitely caught my attention. I'm like, okay, this is definitely going to be a kid to look out for. He's also a kid that's very confident, just he's got that way about him, which I'm very impressed with. And I think he's a great talent. And then, I remember watching his Who's Number One debut. He fought Dominic Mejia. And it was funny. I was sitting there and I'm like, you know what? I bet, this match is going to happen eventually. And as I'm watching this, I'm like, we're going to compete eventually. And it was just funny that he ended up calling me out the end of that. I kind of got a good chuckle out of that. Because I literally just thought that into existence. And I appreciated that because I've been trying to get on the show for a while now. It's something that I've always wanted to be on Who's Number One. It's a big stage. I always like being a part of the big stages, the big events, right? So I didn't take it as an insult or a challenge. I was actually appreciative of him calling me out. I'm like, all right, that's going to help, right? Of course, if someone who's coming up through the ranks is looking for a good match, I'm sure that they want to make that happen. It took a little bit longer than I expected. I think that was over a year ago. But we've kind of been he said a little something at main character one time, and that kind of got it revved up again. And then obviously just recently, kind of started it up again because he's looking for a match. And I think, if we called this out a year ago, we might as well run it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And you're not much of a trash talk guy, Johnny, historically, I feel like, but you're getting in there a little bit. You're making some.
I'm trying. I'm trying. It's not so much of my game, but I also understand that it's a part of the business, so I'm trying to work on it. I'm not going to claim to be any pro at it. I'm definitely an amateur at trash talking. But if it helps sell a match, if it helps get our names out there more, I don't think we're the main event, but definitely over the last few days, it's been one of the more talked about matches, or possible matches. So yeah, I'm kind of buying into it a little bit. I'm getting better at it. My buddy Kevon at Bodega, he's funny. He's a funny guy, so he's kind of in my head and helping me out with a few things that we're going to do in the lead up to.
Nice. Is he ghostwriting for you a little bit?
Little bit. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. Hey, that's a vital part of any successful guy. You got to have someone with a little help there. But it has been cool seeing you kind of engage more online and stuff. Because I agree with you. I do think this went from kind of being like, all right, this is a sick match. I hope people like it. To now, it's like, all right, it really does seem like people are buzzing about this. I feel like obviously everyone knew we were going to announce you versus Owen today. Kind of it's it's not that hard of a puzzle to solve when you see two dudes. Both calling it out, both talking about who's number one, that's probably going to happen soon enough. But it definitely has kind of raised the hype and all that. And Owen is a guy, we just had him on before you, and obviously talking to him, knowing him before and stuff, he is a guy who does better when people engage, whether it be in the trash talk or even in the jiu-jitsu. So I'm curious, it is, the trash talking side of it's maybe not your forte or what you would always do, but I'm wondering, does it change the match for you at all? Does it add anything more to it? Do you think it's something where you'll be able to trash talk, but also kind of that'll help with the match at all, or how does it impact you?
To be honest, I don't know. I'm always very motivated going into a match regardless. I'd like to say that it would give me a bit more energy, let's say, but I can't say for sure. I feel like I come in with the same energy always. So if it helps, I'll definitely be happy about that. I definitely feel like I'm coming in very motivated. I know a lot of what he says is all in just being able to build up the match, but I also remember things at the same time as well. And I do kind of have that Italian American thought of where I take it personally. I kind of like, all right, I'll remember that. He said he was going to smoke me out. I'm sure he means, I don't know how much he actually means of that. Or I'm sure he's all cool about it, but I remember that too at the same time. So I go in with everything he says, whether it be for show or not. I do remember everything as well. So it definitely adds a little bit of motivation for sure.
Yeah. And so one thing you brought up was you said Owen doesn't train that much. I'm kind of curious what you were thinking there and stuff, what you meant by that.
The guy just seems to like to have a good time, likes to go out and party. To what extent, I don't know, but I know that, while my big guys are going on the weekend having a good time, I'm still working. I'm 20 years in and I'm still looking to work and continuing to improve. So I do believe he trains. I'm not going to say he doesn't. Obviously, he's very talented, and I'm sure that comes through hard work. But I don't believe anybody outworks me.
Dang, Johnny, 20 years in jiu-jitsu. You've been at this game for a long time, man. That's wild.
Yeah,
Not many people out
yeah,
there training for 20 years and still at the highest level, man. That's wild.
yeah. I do think I take pride in my longevity. I've been able to stay in the game for a long time, and I think I've just been able to compete at a high level because I've been able to be adjustable with my game over time, understand what's working and what's not. You see a lot of guys at a high level that kind of like, they peak and then you don't and then they kind of just die off. And I think it's because they're unwilling to change themselves. I always remember being like a blue purple belt and watching black belts at Worlds lose the same way every year because they were so stuck on what they know and are unwilling to change. But for me, I feel like what's helped me stick around for such a long time is that I understand that you can't just keep doing one thing expecting to get the same result. You have to be able to adjust your approach to things as time goes on.
I've got some highlights here of Johnny. I don't know if we can play these, Greg.
Let's
I
do
don't
it.
know if Johnny can see these, but we got a younger Johnny from back in the day. Maybe this is like 2018.
That's crazy. 2018 shouldn't feel like a long time ago, yet that is 7 years ago, which is it's stupid.
It
It's
feels like an
stupid. But yeah,
feels like an eternity ago, to be honest.
I mean that's skinny Ethan Crelinson right there. He is not that skinny anymore.
True. He bulked up.
I trained with him. I trained with him at B Team not too long ago, and I was like, "Oh, you are way different now."
We're talking about shoulders. We're talking about big shoulders
Shoulder.
on Johnny.
Yeah, right.
So,
Ethan has the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
craziest arms of any grappler. They're so long and just like wild looking. Like sometimes when you see Ethan, it's like, whoa, dude, you are built to just take people's backs, I suppose. But
I think I have a pretty good physique for the most part, but like I think when I was there, I'm like, I'm just gonna keep my rash guard on for this picture because he's completely different.
nice.
Yeah, this was with Paulo here.
yeah, this is a fun event back in the day at the Hammerstein Ballroom.
I,
Kasai.
I I missed those Kasai events. I thought that they were great, and especially with them being in New York and like at home. We need to get a who's number one in like New York and New Jersey at some
That would be
point
awesome.
because having them on the Northeast was really having these events in the Northeast was really cool.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Yeah, we always talk about it. You got a venue for us? You got a good venue for cheap? You got any inside connections?
I don't know. I don't know about for cheap. Nothing in New York, unfortunately, comes
Yeah.
cheap. I hope you guys are able to come across something good though, because that'd be sick.
Definitely. Do you like what was Gianni like? What was your career like at this point, at this Kasai and everything? You know how have things changed also for you?
I think how has it changed? I mean, I don't train in the gi anymore. At that point in that event, I would consider myself more of a gi guy. Like I always enjoyed the gi more. And then not too long after that, like I just started seeing my results change where like gi was kind of like up and down, and no gi was trending more upward.
You
And
won
as I got,
Nogi Worlds that year too, maybe I believe.
yeah, I think I won Nogi Worlds. I beat Marcio Andre in the final. So beating Paulo Miao and Marcio Andre back to back months, that was incredible for me. And then yeah, I just kind of started, analyzing my results and seeing how much better it was going in Nogi and seeing that I was getting close to pushing 30. And it's like when you're in your 30s, how do you really think you can win both in gi and Nogi? It's a hard thing to do for anybody. And then especially as you get older and your time is kind of limited on how long you're going to compete. So I kind of felt like I had to prioritize one or the other. And then I ended up prioritizing Nogi shortly after that. And I think that was a great decision for myself. Also makes laundry a shit ton easier.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, true, dude. One of the biggest changes in my life was when I finally got an apartment with an in-unit washer and dryer. And boy, did that change
dude.
the game, dude. Being able to
Dude,
wash my
I-
gis every day, not going to the laundromat.
Dude, I was just telling someone recently that I used to live in an apartment where I had to drive to a laundromat, and this is when I was still training the gi all the time. and I would rack up like 10 gis in this bin, and it would just get disgusting in there. And by the end of the week, every Saturday, I would take it to the laundromat. I'd just basically take up like half the laundromat with all my gis, rash guard shorts, and everything. So the in unit is super important, first of all. And then second of all, just like not having, so many bulky gis to work with makes life so much easier.
Yeah, I bet those laundromat people would see you from a mile away and be like, "Oh no, it's that guy."
They could, unfortunately, they could smell me from a mile away.
Yeah,
those gis were rank by the end of the week. It was pretty bad.
That's brutal. So you talked a little bit about how you would see a lot of guys lose in the same way, and they kind of wouldn't change anything. And I feel like you're a guy who has kind of changed somewhat drastically in the last few years, mainly when it comes to the like drilling versus ecological side of things, because originally you were known as one of the big drilling type of guys, and now you're kind of, at least what it seems like, all in on the ecological stuff. So what led you to that shift in like your approach to training and everything?
I was saying, Johnny, that I used to go to Marcelo's, and then in between classes, I would just film you drilling for like two hours in between classes and stuff. So you were so dialed in on the drilling aspect of things, I feel like, more than anybody else.
Oh, for sure. So I definitely took a complete 180, but also it just came with like getting older, having more responsibilities, not wanting to spend 8 hours a day on the mat. I do feel like, first of all, just from a time perspective, ecological approach is better because you're more efficient with your time. And also, like, after a while, like, you just need to find different ways to learn. I'm not gonna be that eco guy that's gonna bash drilling, because I did it for so long and I think I was able to make it work for myself. But being introduced to eco and to CLA, I do find myself learning in different ways and being just as productive. And actually, let me say that right, being more productive with my time. For example, like, and I always just kind of tell people this as like a reference, like, my stand-up has always been kind of mid throughout my career. And I remember I was just going to my buddy Kevon's gym at Bodega, and we're working on like a game just starting from an underhook from the feet. And the goal was to only find ways to get their hands or hips to the mat any way that you can. And I had zero idea on how to do that, but just working from that position for 10 minutes against live resistance, in that 10 minutes, I was able to find 3, 4, 5 ways on how to get their hands or hips to the mat. And then from there, that became a strength of mine, just because I would keep working it against resisting opponents. Whereas I feel like drilling, when you're doing against someone that's not really fighting back, or there's no resistance, I don't know if you really get the proper reactions. So one, I feel like it was very efficient with my time, and two, I felt like I was learning a lot faster than I usually would through drilling.
What was your first kind of introduction to eco? Was it like Bodega, or did you kind of come across it a different way? I guess, how did you get kind of introduced to it?
Yeah, so I do give full credit to Kevon there. He was the one that was looking. Greg Souders obviously he started following Greg Souders. He talked to him a lot, and then Kevon was bringing that over to me. And at first, I was very reluctant because I was so used to what I know. But he kind of just hammered it at me. He's like, "Gianni, try this. Let's give it a few weeks, give a few practices just to kind of get a feel for it. And, just get rid of the drilling for a little bit. Let's just play these games that I've been working on, see how you feel, and we go from there." And I remember, like, after a few weeks, I just felt like I was learning a lot more. And also, it was just way more fun too. To be honest, like, I get tired of just like listening to guys talk, on why their technique works. Instead, just give me something to do and let me figure it out on my own. So it's just, I feel like it's, like I say, it's more efficient with the time. And also, it's just, you're constantly doing live work. There's never any pausing for too long and just listening to the technique. You're just constantly working. Like there's an hour, 15-minute session at Bodega morning and night. And for like 75, 80-minute class, we're working for about 65 minutes, of live work, almost each practice. So there's very little breaks, and there's very little sitting and listening. It's just constant, like, figuring it out on your own.
What's the other, like, 10 minutes or so?
Well, the coaches will explain like what the constraints are, what the goals are in each game. But it's pretty short. So you You don't have to listen to instruction for too long, but it always makes sense. And I even watch the white belts and the people who are very new, and they're picking it up as well. First, I'm thinking, oh, am I just picking it up because I've been around for so long? But it even goes back to the day one guys as well. They're able to figure it out as well. Maybe Kevon has to give them a little bit of a longer explanation, kind of scale it a little bit, of course, give them different tasks, give them more constraints. But white belt to black belt can be in those practices and still find it just as productive, for anyone at any level.
And so just like on like a larger scale jiu-jitsu meta, obviously there's a lot of debate on drilling and eco, and like, is this the direction you think that jiu-jitsu should be going, just kind of like on a larger, more global scale, going more towards eco and away from drilling?
You know what? Like anyone can do anything that they want. I don't like to. You guys could do whatever you want. There's a lot of successful people that drill. Look at AOJ. AOJ is filled with high level talent, and they drill a lot. Atos, they drill a lot. So I think it's different strokes for different folks, or whatever you want to say. I don't want to be the guy who knocks drilling, because like I said, I did it for so long and I feel like I was successful with it. I do find it to be the better approach, but if you're gonna successful with something else, all the power to you. Do what you want, and if it works for you, great. But I've been doing it for like the last year and a half, 2 years. I find it to be really working. It's a lot of fun. And I'll go with that. But anyone can do anything that they want. I don't like the whole I think the debate gets a little too crazy, to be honest. And if someone's successful with something else, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, I guess that's the nature of debating any topic, right? People double down and want it to be very finite. It's no, you have to do this or you have to do that, or it's wrong or it's right. But it is, probably a hybrid approach to most things in life. A balanced approach is probably better, So there's a little bit of something for the people. Go out there and, find your balance and live a better life.
Find what works for you. Just find what works for you. I think that's super important.
Yeah, I've been working on more of a instead of ecological or drilling, I've been trying to play around with a theological or a philosophical approach, where I mainly pray on jiu-jitsu, or I just sit and think about it and then see if I can improve that way without actually doing it. So far, it's not going well.
I mean, at least you're trying something. Maybe it'll click at some point. Who knows? Keep at it.
Yeah.
It's the only option you have when you're on the road a lot and videos all day.
Yeah.
You don't get to train sometimes.
I mean, it does kind of help for sure.
Yeah, but
like visualizing. I mean, not to take your semi joke into seriousness, but doing visualization work. Of course, you need to be on the mats. That's super important. But also, if you're hurt or something and you can't train, spending time watching videos, spending time just kind of being in your own thoughts, seeing out certain situations in your head. When I do get back to training, and if I'm away for a little bit, I do see that helping as well. I used to do visualization work all the time, just kind of mind mapping how I want to approach any situation. And so I definitely see how that can work. I don't know if you'll get to a high level just doing that, but there's definitely the benefits.
Well, I'm just trying to beat this guy Steve at my gym. He's a brown belt dude, real pain in the ass. So as long as I get there,
that's all that matters.
Yeah. I'm just kidding. Are you a big anime guy, Gianni?
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not. I can't say I am.
Me neither, to be honest. I've actually always kind of stood on business with doubling down as not an anime guy, because you get a lot of jiu-jitsu guys who are anime guys. But I did watch my first anime ever, and there's it's basically a big kumite, all right? And there's one character who, when he sleeps, he's simulating matches in his mind. He's developed this skill where he can copy people he watches fight in real life and then put them in a simulator in his dreams. And so he's had 4,000 matches or something crazy in the last few months, just because he's always sleeping. So that might be the next thing up, to be honest. Yeah, is
that'll be the new thing in the next few years.
Yeah.
Everyone's
Lucid
just sleeping and
drilling.
visualizing.
Yeah. So if you want to go in on this early with me, and maybe we could start writing some papers on it or something. I don't know.
Book out now and start
it could be
Instagram.
big for us. But
absolutely, you have to get some guys on from the Allione team, because so many guys were talking about anime. Devontae Johnson was probably the biggest anime guy, and the team would have all these conversations about anime, and that was the one conversation where I was just staring at the wall. I had no input.
Yeah. But so I want to, now that we got anime talk out of the way, I want to bring it back to, who's number one. And obviously, I feel like you are a guy who's been kind of long overdue to be making his Who's Number One debut. So for one, I want to say, that we're happy to finally get you on, for you to finally be making your debut on Who's Number One. I think it's a great place for athletes like who have been holding it down for so long, always put on exciting matches and everything. But I also just kind of want to ask you, like, why is Who's Number One a super fight show or a promotion that you've wanted to be on and everything?
I just see a lot of the biggest names, on the show, and I get serious FOMO every time I watch your events. I would text people being like, "Man, I'm tired of watching these at home. I want to be a part of it." I just enjoy being on the big stages, being where the high level action is at, and you guys have been at the forefront of that for a while now. I remember like kind of just I remember when COVID was at its peak. I feel like Who's Number One was the event to watch for a period of time. You guys were one of the main groups or one of the main organizations out there, still putting on matches. And I'm like, man, I want to be there. I want to be there. I'm tired of sitting here. I don't like watching this. Even though I've been keeping myself busy for years. I can't say I haven't had good opportunities. I haven't been on other amazing events, but Who's Number One was definitely something I would always like, regardless of where I go or what I'm doing. I always want my opportunity there as well.
Nice.
What's it like shifting your mindset coming from like a team tournament setting now knowing you have just like a singular opponent that you can prepare for and you've got this time? Like how do you prepare yourself for that differently?
I think my approach always the same. I like to keep that energy that I had in the team event.
Right.
I want to pretend that I have like teammates around me just because I felt so amped for every match out there. So I'm trying to keep that energy. I'm just going to fly out a bunch of my friends so that I can have like a team support there, just so I feel like I'm fighting for them as well. But really, the approach I get, obviously it's a little bit easier because I don't have to think about multiple opponents. All I have to do is think about one. So it makes it easier to kind of approach. You're not having like a general training where you're just trying to improve yourself. You're trying to improve yourself, but also you can have like focuses of like what Owen's strengths are, what his weaknesses are, and how we can exploit them. So it's a little bit more strategic, whereas probably like a team event or a tournament style, it's kind of hard to really set a strategy because you don't really know who you're fighting either. I think even on the other team, sometimes there was like an A and B guy at IEGA, so that you're not sure who they're going to pick. So you were never really sure who you were actually fighting until maybe a few hours before. So obviously this is different because you know weeks in advance who you're fighting.
Stylistically with Owen, how do you kind of think you guys match up? What are you expecting from this match with Owen?
Yeah, I'm expecting him to try to leg lock me. I'm expecting a lot of leg entanglements. And to be honest, I think Kazakhstan was a great trip for me because I learned a lot about how to approach it. I think I've always been very good at countering leg locks and turning them into opportunities to take the back and find the finish. But I was also hanging out with DeAndre Corbet a lot, and I was watching him training with him a lot, and he had a great approach of like how to just not even get into leg entanglements to begin with, how with just certain little goals that he had in mind in training and in competition as well, and how he was able to kind of like avoid getting into leg entanglements all the time and find using that to find good pass opportunities. So like obviously I feel good with my game that I have going in, but I also picked up a lot over the last couple of weeks that I feel like is going to help me a lot in the match as well. Um, but yeah, overall I feel really good about the match. I'm really excited about the stylistic matchup that we'll have.
Do you kind of have like an expectation for how you think this match is going to play out, how you think it's going to end up?
Yeah, I feel confident. I feel comfortable either way that it goes. I don't really expect like, oh, I'm gonna definitely be on bottom. I'm definitely gonna be on top. I definitely feel like if I'm more like say on bottom, I feel like I have good opportunities to find the back, expose the back, look to take the back from my guard, and look to get the finish from there. And then if I'm on top, I feel like he's obviously gonna try to attack the legs. That's fine, deal with it and use those as an opportunity to either get past and looking to get the head and arm, or also look to take the back from there as well, of course. Never easy, of course, but I definitely feel confident in the strategy that we're coming up with.
Definitely. Well, I feel like we're almost up on time here, Gianni. Is there anything else you want to say or anything else you want to talk about before we go or anything?
Just shout out to my team, Bodega Jiu Jitsu. I really believe these guys have been helping me out a lot. Kevon Gonzalez, he's been a great coach. So check him out. I think he's awesome. And my sponsor Felix. And yeah, guys, I'm looking forward to this match. I'm very excited to finally be on this show. Like I say, it's been something I've been wanting to do for a while. I don't like just like watching these events. I love partaking in them. So I'm finally happy to get the opportunity. And in the first event, I believe this is the first event in Miami. So that's cool. It's something different. It's always in Texas, and Texas is great, but we need to change it up a little bit sometimes. So I'm glad I can be one of the first to compete for Who's Number One out in Miami, somewhere a little different.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you on. I'm excited for this one. I think you versus Owen's going to be an electric match. And, for everybody at home, if you want to come out to this one, make sure you go to tickets.flowsports.tv. It's going down Friday, July 25th at Who's Number One 29. Obviously, Gianni and Owen. I'm expecting this one to kind of steal the show, but there's a lot of other sick matches on this one as well. So, again, Gianni, thank you for calling in, man. We appreciate it. It was fun talking to you, and I guess we'll see you at Who's Number One.
Yeah, see you guys in a few weeks. Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny.
Right,
see you guys.
Thanks,
see everybody in the next episode.